Hey, happy holidays, everybody. Thank you for joining me for the AI Applied Consortium 2025 year in review. Usually on this podcast series, if you've been following it, I've had many esteemed guests throughout the year, from the Chancellor of Penn State to folks from all across the industry, from Visa to British Petroleum, all sorts of different folks, our trustees, and other individuals that have been working with our ecosystem. But today it's just going to be myself. I'd like to think that I can fill the time here with some valuable information. And if you guys have been following my feed or the consortium feed, I put out a kind of year in reflection LinkedIn post, and I was kind of limited to the few thousand characters available to be able to condense a bunch of very interesting things together. So I'm going to try to go through that in a little bit more in detail, and as well a few other things that we've accomplished throughout the year. And hopefully I'll leave you with some insights, keep things relatively light. This is unrehearsed. I just wanted to have this opportunity to share in detail and perhaps get you guys, for those of you not already involved in some of the consortium activities. So let me start with the latest, which is the LinkedIn post that I put up, and kind of go through that a little bit more. And then I'll share some specifics that I didn't have a chance to cover. And then we can dig out a little bit more in detail some of the other work that we've done. So I lead the post with kind of a reflection note, but the first thing I mention is one of the things I'm most proud of collectively with the consortium, which is the development of our AI policy posture and its impact on some of the content that came out of the White House AI policy. And this was submitted. There's a link here in the post. Collectively, with all our trustees, all our advisors, and several organizations that, in effect, gave us their go-ahead to sign on their behalf, including uh, the National Association of Wholesalers, U.S. Center of Advanced Manufacturing, PILCO, and other groups. And the collective kind of voice that we created here, and I like this as a kind of a talking point because I think it's a powerful talking point. The individuals that contribute to this, first of all, a lot of domain experts in both the AI technology and in industry, but the industries that they represent more than $1 trillion in the US economy yearly. So it's a powerful voice. It was one that was it was grounded in what really the consortium is about and the diversity of our members in terms of their expertise. So we have academics, we have technology professionals, and we have industry folks, all of which are coming together to kind of speak to the necessities, gaps of artificial intelligence from different lenses. I think that is kind of first of all, the grounding differentiator in our policy posture, because it speaks to these different lenses of industry, technology, academia. And I think it's a critical one to be able to kind of holistically cover all the things that you need to cover to appropriately regulate, fund AI in this space. So for those of you that haven't seen it, it's available on the link that's in the post via the NITRD site, which is our RFI that's submitted to the Office of Science and Technology. Incidentally, again, if you look at the White House AI American policy, you'll see a lot of similarity, and we do have some unique, I call it, channels into this space so that our voice can be heard, and I'm glad it was heard. We're also building out a subcommittee in this space with some of our most recent appointed trustees, namely Sam Hamilton, who's the former senior vice president of Visa, and Dr. Satyam, who's the former chief data scientist of Halliburton, and a few other team members that will be driving what we call our AI policy to practice, which is basically a collective effort to be able to bring to life in a more practical way some of the direction of our policy posture. So those things, I mean, that's kind of a broad topic, but for example, a simple thing would be building out some of our applied AI projects for purpose aligned with some of our policy posture, let's say in the manufacturing space. So that's our policy document. Again, a really amazing thing where we brought it together, a lot of different people from a lot of different organizations. So thank you to all the trustees, all the advisors, all the participating organizations. And I would urge you guys both to take a look at it, see if you can maybe contribute to our future policy to posture efforts, and use it maybe as a way to potentially give us additional insights if you are a technology professional or someone in the space. We do welcome everyone's insight, and we do intend on both amending and appending this document and continuing on our policy to practice efforts in the near future with our committee. So then continuing on that path, I think we did a lot of great things in terms of our applied AI collaborative research with our academic individuals and institutes ranging from DePaul to Penn State to University of Kentucky and a lot of different other universities. Namely, most recently, we began a collaboration with a tier one Indian university that is working with our industrial manufacturing sandbox. A lot of really cool things that we're expanding in that space. In fact, the background here, which is obviously a virtual background, is part of our historical AI sandboxes that exists across North America. And our logo there is in the background in that screen. Not AI generated, real, just the overlay is not real. At least I'm not there right now. So with that in mind, we also build out other initiatives. One of those that I mentioned in the LinkedIn post was Tariff 360. So Tariff 360 was actually something that we conceptualized with the National Association of Wholesalers, but it was not exclusively designed for the wholesale space. It was an effort to try to bring demonstrable value AI or value through AI to industry with what is like top of mind areas of interest. And for a long time there, and maybe for some of you still the case, tariffs are definitely top of mind. They were very dynamic, so to say, at least in the last year, and so that created a moving target for understanding the impact of these tariffs on various supply chains and organizations. And grounded in that was, well, what better technology than artificial intelligence than to aggregate large volumes of information that is constantly changing and be able to provide augmented decision making to organizations. So we built out this, we call it beta application with some of our researchers in academia. There's a link there to some of the screenshots. And if you want to learn more, just follow the rabbit hole. It should take you down a path that gives you an ability to register for some of the beta trials only if you are, I'll call it like an end user organization. But furthermore, we built a really amazing partnership. I keep mentioning the National Association of Wholesalers, but they've been very vocal, supportive, and engaging collaboratively with us. There's their CTO, Bart Tessel. Shout out to him. He is not actually officially on the trustee board, or he might be on the council page. It probably merits update for the wholesale distribution, but he is definitely one of the partners that the AI Applied Consortium has, along with his group. And we've participated both in their national events. In fact, Bart and I met 2 years ago at their executive summit, which is hosted in DC. And I had the privilege to speak there at a very exclusive kind of group with, I think I spoke 2 presenters before, the former Defense Secretary Robert Gates. And then I got to meet Bart, and I think that, along with some of the relationships I built with that audience that I spoke at, helped accelerate our traction in the wholesale distribution space and ultimately led to this strengthening of ties with the National Association of Wholesalers. They supported some of the domain feedback for Terra 360. We're building up different types of efforts along research papers, gray papers that we're looking to publish throughout next year. And we are also, I would say, with certainty, although the data is potentially still uncertain, building out one of our symposiums collaboratively with them at Texas A&M University. So that's in the works, and maybe I'll thread that discussion since we're talking about symposiums. A lot of things that I didn't have the chance to mention in the post that I think definitely merit mentioning in kind of the year in review. The consortium has a variety of different quarterly symposiums, and these symposiums are essentially hosted by our participating ecosystem. So what I mean by participating ecosystem is basically anyone that is a trustee member. And every quarter we tend to be hosted at a different location. The last location was the Visa headquarters. And so there's actually a picture, I think, in our LinkedIn post, at least some of the historical ones where we had the group that was part of the symposium, and it was a very elite, a very thought-driven group. We talked about a bunch of different topics. We were hosted by the Visa executives, Sam Hamilton, our new trustee, being one of those folks, and a few others, as well as a lot of local people. We had Cynthia Bailey, who is a recognized thought leader, Stanford professor, works deeply in the AI space, advises the federal government in the AI space, kind of elicit a really nice discussion amongst us around regulation and artificial intelligence and kind of the ethical aspects of it. We talked about, what the future might look like with artificial intelligence automating and constantly moving the automation line. So it was a really good discussion. So maybe a call to action for the folks interested, there will be other symposiums. We had another one, again, that kind of, I would say was a real emotional one for me at University of Kentucky earlier this year, hosted by Hassan, who's one of our trustees, a professor at a very distinguished engineering department at University of Kentucky, along with his department chair. And I remember when we first started the consortium, meeting Professor Hassan, walking those halls in his engineering building, and envisioning a day where we could host an event like this. And it really came full circle. And I'm not really like a corny sort of person, but it gave me like goosebumps to be able to accomplish this with a large audience of professors, students, executives listening, both for guidance, but also for our accomplishments in the last year when we hosted the symposium. So moving into the new year, we'll do a lot more of those. And I welcome you guys to reach out if you're interested in participating. So moving on to my LinkedIn post, beyond that, we did also a lot of additional work with the U.S. Center for Advanced Manufacturing. So early in the year, we published an article through their journal. I think it was called 360-Degree View of Applied AI in Manufacturing. And it included a lot of our experts in the manufacturing space. And I think it created a lot of unique lenses to look at artificial intelligence in this space. The more, I'll call it traditional ones, maybe not traditional, but the more obvious ones being, what can AI do in terms of supporting a variety of different use cases, both machine learning, neural network-based artificial intelligence, some of the agentic stuff that's coming out now to be able to automate or augment different workflows. Talked about edge AI and its use and impact, and kind of how it's maybe shifting some of the dynamics of operational technology, with some of the large operational technology infrastructure provider embedding artificial intelligence chips into their hardware and the PLC stack. So things that are moving in this space that might, merit looking at, not just looking at AI, but looking at new ways to apply it in manufacturing, looking at rethinking some of the historical things that are being done in this space, and rethinking even like, I'll call it the historical, the aging perspectives of artificial intelligence. So the old machine learning, the traditional computer vision that now have this supercharged ability to be able to consume new types of causal features and interpret them for better predictive analytics or address computer vision challenges through synthetic data. A lot of interesting stuff. But one of the, I think, most interesting things that was a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but was raised by Michael Burgess, who's also a trustee executive at a mid-tier automotive part manufacturer, was using or rethinking how the manufacturing sector can diversify its manufacturing to support the growth of artificial intelligence, predominantly like data centers and things like that. So what can you do to diversify your manufacturing portfolio in light of this new market that is emerging that will require like some new modular designs, maybe more optimized ways to put things together in data centers. So an interesting read, and that kind of followed on to collaboration with the U.S. Center. We contributed to by invite in the World Economic Forum session hosted in also in DC by George Washington University to roundtables, and we had a discussion there on ways in which we feel it wasn't explicit to AI, but like the future of work, skill sets of the future. And we brainstormed these skill sets. And I remember verbatim speaking to this idea I keep talking about, like with the shift in AI being able to do more technical, low level tasks, the necessity to look at the future skills a little bit differently, right? Where maybe you don't need to know very specific engineering or mathematical details or coding details. However, you still need to understand them, but rather the technology will allow you to build, create, and thereby kind of shifting the level of abstraction that you need to be able to function successfully in the workforce. And so that kind of led down the path of what are those things, which included problem solving, creative thinking, resilience. And in fact, all those things almost verbatim made it to the World Economic Forum's Future of Work report that I think in part at least came out of those roundtables. And I think those are good forward looking research statements that can help guide workforce readiness for this technology as it begins to evolve. So again, that's part of the collaboration between the U.S. Center of Advanced Manufacturing. We also participated with our new trustee, Dr. Satyam, at a similar discussion in New York at the World Trade Center. So a lot of different kind of ways in which we engage in this space. And I think that also helps us when we have these collaborative roundtables with these industry people, tap into this knowledge, both giving what we feel is relevant into this space, but also receiving in terms of feedback and insight. And that's kind of one of our unique, I think, differentiators, if you will, right? Because we're, the AI Applied Consortium, what we're looking to do is to have a pulse into different industries and to the needs of these industries, and also have a pulse into the technology and the state of the art of the technology and create that alignment. So another good partnership that we built. And then we also nominated several esteemed trustees. The ones I was able to fit here in the LinkedIn post and my character limit. Of course, the most latest one, Sam Hamilton, former senior vice president of data and AI at Visa, and we're really excited about his collaboration that he's going to support, both in terms of the subcommittees that I mentioned and just in general having someone of that stature with our group is an absolute, great path for the board as a whole. And I think it'll contribute a lot to our direction. Dr. Satyam, a former chief data scientist of Halliburton earlier this year, and then TC Murray and Greg Kenny, TC being from TurtleX. Originally, this is a electronics large or mid-sized electronic distributor, but there's a IT division or a tech division that they run as well. And Greg from BASF, the director of process safety for BASF. So cross-functional group, academics, industry folks, different industries especially. So we really welcome all four of those folks from this year. We now have 15 trustees, which is going to be our cap. I think there's going to be some new folks that will come on in the advisory groups, and we do rotate trustees every few years. I think there's some expected to rotate next year. So if you are a senior executive in this space, and by chance you've come across this and listened this long, we do welcome new trustees, new advisory council members. So feel free to reach out if you want to participate. So moving on, I think the other thing that I wanted to mention, and then we'll break down some of the grassroots stuff, is the work that we did through Prolifics to win the IBM Global Sustainability Award for 2025. So this was actually in part with the contribution of Penn State and the industrial sandbox that we have there, and the work that we did with the IBM team to be able to build out capabilities in the computer vision space to allow for computer vision to in effect function and for purpose allow this industrial lab to use it to look at different types of cast aluminum cast parts and inspect them for different defects, and thereby leading to reduced scrap, and kind of that translated to a lot of energy savings, rework savings, scrap metal savings that in turn have very tangible sustainability benefits. So we won the sustainability award for 2025. Initially, it was just a North American one, and then we were surprised last minute at the awards with the global award. There's a LinkedIn link there to give you a little bit more insight if you're interested in learning more about that. So I want to circle back, I guess, on a few different things, just for the sake of additional bookkeeping, and then I want to talk a little bit more about like industry and where the space is going. I think I have a little bit more time. So, in addition to what I was shared here in the post, there was other active partnerships that we've built. A lot of the new partnership channels are looking to extend our thought leadership through, I'll call it like workshop or event channels that we have unique collaboration with. So one of those is IQPC, a very large organization, and they host several different topically relevant events, and they collaborate with us, right? We support them in building up workshop content and kind of general themes of discussion that are relevant to the industries that they're targeting. We host workshops that are top of mind. We host panels similarly that are top of mind. This past year, we've done several events with IQPC in Chicago and Houston, and we continue to look forward to those collaborations with them and their team. We also put out, similarly to what we did with U.S. Center for Advanced Manufacturing, some unique publications collaboratively with our domain experts. So I think there's one that is available if you search for it. I will try to add it here to the comment section, where Dr. Satyam and myself and a few other folks participated in focused discussion around AI in the energy space. And then another group that we are closely aligned with is the Energy Conference Network. So they've amassed an advisory council of experts in this space as well. I am on that advisory council, and part of that involves kind of a similar collaboration to what we're doing with IQPC. So I think a great set of channels to be able to drive our thought leadership through, not just myself, but all our trustees and advisory council members. So in addition to that, there's probably a few other things that I wanted to cover. One of them is our research with DePaul University. So one of the other symposiums we had was the Humanitarian AI for Social Good Symposium in DePaul. We actually had now two of those, one that was kind of a hybrid one last year on the back of IMTS, which is the International Manufacturing Technology Show, and one this year entirely in the humanitarian space. We've grown our Humanitarian AI for Social Good Council a little bit in this past year, and I'm looking forward to them kind of bridging some of the efforts that they are pursuing with some practical application, including some work that we're doing to build up different types of AI frameworks that some of our trustees are participating in, as well as collaborating with organizations like the United Nations, which I know DePaul has a unique relationship with. So we're looking to pursue those. All right. So hopefully I covered everything. There's one more thing here of the video analytics stuff that we've done for quite some time now. There was a great group of students from DePaul University that participated in some research. We will actually be putting out research papers for both that program and the Terra 360 program early in the new year. So look out for them both through our LinkedIn and on our websites. It'll give, especially people that are interested in this for the purpose of looking at the feasibility of using it for themselves. This isn't going to be a highly technical paper. It'll be more of a gray paper, roughly 10 to 15 pages in length, that will try to engage these communities of individuals that have an interest in this technology. So please take a look when you get a chance early in the new year. So now I kind of wanted to circle back on the industry as a whole, maybe give some insights. I'm not sure if I posted this here. I think my original post had this, but I had to trim down the content here to fit LinkedIn links. So, there is an active um, tone in this last quarter that I'm not sure is grounded in too much, but maybe in just historical fear around the AI bubble. And I've seen that on kind of the financial reports I've read, and just in kind of the mainstream. I hate to use this word, but mainstream media. And it's not that it's completely disconnected from reality, but I think it is kind of missing all the hyper disruptive, very tangible things that are evidently being brought to the table when it comes to the capabilities of AI. Not, I mean, fundamentally just traditional artificial intelligence and deep neural networks for the purpose of predicting different types of future states in different industries, which are very valuable and are proven to be very valuable. But I think a lot of what we're talking about right now is large language models and agentic AI. And that's where a lot of the hype and the investment is. But even that alone, for those of you that have used this technology, you can see, and I'm sure have to some extent, valued the benefit, whether it be using it for code generation or automating some sort of back office task. That is already there. And it is hyper disruptive as it is, right? I think the expectation is twofold. One, that it will continue in this momentum, which there's been maybe some speed bumps. And I think that's okay, right? I still see visible progress in capabilities on newly released large language models, whether it be the latest Gemini, which took a big jump from its predecessors, to the latest GPT-5.2, there is evident improvement. I think the other thing is that the integration space is still catching up, and a lot of the bandwagon folks, and I'm not judging those individuals, because some point or another in our career, we have to jump onto a technology that we feel is beneficial and potentially profitable. But I think a lot of those technology individuals or organizations are still catching up in terms of all the moving parts necessary to make it successful, right? So the fundamentals, and I'll allude back to that MIT report that maybe some of you have heard of, where 95% of projects, AI projects failed. And if you unpack that report, there's a lot of I think that the 95% is a talking point for sure. And I think even admittedly, it's a talking point based on what I've seen. Um, there is nuances in that, right? So one of them is 2/3 of those projects that failed were organizations that essentially tried to build these on their own entirely, with the belief that, I mean, I don't want to assume belief, but let's say my assumption is that the same thing that you can do in chatgpt.com to bring it to an enterprise level, it's just a matter of using more chatgpts.com. And it removes all the enterprise architecture components that are necessary to make it successful, right? Which we'll cover here in a second, just for the sake of discussion. So that's one layer, and it speaks to how a lot of the success has been grounded in, using a partner, a technology experts or experts to support you on this journey. I think that fundamentally what that means is that traditional machine learning, traditional expertise in this space does not automatically translate to expertise in agentic AI and large language models. That isn't to say that smart people can't learn, right? So, but then there's a learning curve, and there's a Does it, not everyone can learn everything, uh, and support the velocity in which this needs to move to keep up with the latest large language model, keep up with the competition, and et cetera. So, in other words, you can't do things on your own. And I think that's also reflected and voiced in this report. The other thing is the three fundamental kind of pillars in which they say agentic, and I completely agree with, because we see this here in almost every project, both in a positive way for those that are successful and in a negative light when they're not. Three fundamental pillars of successful agentic large language model implementations is memory, right? So memory meaning being able to incorporate context specific things, but at scale, that are relevant to the purpose of what you're building the agentic agent for. So if you have huge knowledge corpus, you are going to need a way to push that into the agent's ability to interpret it. And it's not going to work if you just copy paste the document, right? It's just not going to fit in the context window. Second is continuous improvement, which is definitely an important piece of the puzzle. And when looked at, at an implementation level, you have to consider, how do you build an enterprise architecture that can learn from both the types of prompts you use, which in effect can mean chains of thoughts or otherwise just essentially some of the nuances of the prompt, to what is being retrieved successfully with a level of accuracy from your knowledge repositories, to the run cost of your models, right? All those things in some shape or form don't really need to be more often than not considered in a pilot, but do have to be considered in a production environment. So that's another one. The last one is workflow integration, which is kind of to me, a kind of a broad point that says, well, one, you want to deliver these agents in a way that align with the existing purpose and workflow, which could be as simple as, well, if I'm trying to augment decision making on the shop floor, having someone interact with a chatbot may not be the best way. That doesn't mean the large language model can't function, but the delivery of the information, the way in which it exchanges insight, has to look different. So that's, I think, one example of many. Is without opening this rabbit hole too deep, I will say that the consortium is working with some of our esteemed trustees on putting out some workshops and some best practice papers, along with some of the organizations that are collaborating with us, specifically to share these success paths to be able to build out successful agentic solutions at an enterprise scale. I've come across, especially with our trustees being from these amazingly large organizations, very compelling examples of how to succeed with agentic, how to succeed with large language models. Everything from considering, unique, comprehensive semantic embedding approaches where you're doing document cracking and indexing and building out the right types of embeddings so that you can retrieve information accurately and precisely, right? It's one thing to retrieve one document and extract information. It's another to retrieve a sentence from a document where you have 10,000 alike documents in the knowledge repository. So a lot of nuances. I think fundamentally, for those that are listening that have been challenged with this technology, there are a lot of things to build out that will help you succeed. And not all of them have to come from us. I mean, they're publicly available, but we will share more information as we build it out through our the documents, our white papers, and some of the workshops we're building. But coming back to the underlining point is, I think the technology I've seen in this AI space is very disruptive. I am still a firm believer in how it's changing the world, how it will continue to change the world. Um, in many of my sessions that I have, I challenge audiences to use it. If you haven't used it extensively, I'm assuming anyone that has listened to this is already using it in some level. But I think that is the first entry point to be able to succeed with it and understand its potential. I think a lot of these maybe media mainstream messages come from a place where these people are, the messages are not really vetting the technology as a whole. But that being said, I think there are obvious challenges to things like artificial general intelligence. Maybe there is technology being built that we don't actually actively see. From what I've seen from the latest voices in this space, large language models may not be the path to artificial general intelligence, but they are definitely paths to value if you find the right use cases to match what they can deliver. So I think in 2026, you'll see a lot of more advancement in this space, both in terms of integrators being more capable of delivering enterprise grade solutions, considering all these moving parts that they may not have currently the expertise in or are still growing their expertise. So I think the success rate will grow just natively with that. And I also think that the technology itself, everyone's doubling down from the data center compute capacities to all the top tier technology providers. So inevitably, this will become more powerful. And I truly believe that there is limitless potential here, and we'll only can see it grow. Now, how the financial markets react to this, I guess we'll see. But I think the technology will move forward regardless. Right. So I'm coming up at the end of the session. Maybe in a year in review, a little bit more casually. We did I think 9 or 10 podcasts this year. I was aiming for a little more, but we'll have plenty coming up next year. We'll have our new trustees, some of the new trustees that haven't been on, uh, be on early next year. I remember starting this with the chancellor of Penn State, one of our trustees, and I remember thinking, I'm not a great interviewer. I think I'm used to speaking, and then I like to think I got a little better with my ability to try to let someone else speak. Mind you, now I've been speaking for 50 minutes to myself, let's say. But I think, I thought I kept it pretty casual. I remember asking him a few questions that were very relevant to the work that we're doing, and then I asked him a question about if he believes AI will become sentient, and he smiled, and being a chancellor, I guess, gave me kind of a friendly but very relevant answer on where this technology is going and how he feels about artificial general intelligence. And I like to think I brought that to all the other podcasts. We had Dr. Satyam, former chief data scientist of Halliburton. We had Mike Braun, who now is in Ernst & Young, and one of his colleagues played a nice role with us in the video analytics program in the public sector council. And in each of these, again, we talked about topics. I hope I'm getting a little better in being able to interview people. We talked about quantum computing with Dr. Satyam and the future of similarly artificial general intelligence and kind of the prerequisites to that. I remember in my limited knowledge of quantum computing, talking about and asking him about qubit stability and where this technology is going and how it'll play into maybe some of the essential hardware components of being able to truly have compute capacity that can drive this future sentient, if you will, artificial intelligence. So we had a lot of fun, at least as much fun as you can have remotely. I don't know, I'm not going to get a studio anytime soon, but this was part of our effort to bring just the latest in what we're doing to the masses, whether it be in live stream or on a recording. It also creates a footprint for us. In fact, like some subtle things we accomplished is we were able to roll up in the rankings for Google searches for our applied consortium and a bunch of different things that are maybe not relevant to the bigger picture when it comes to applied AI, but definitely relevant to being able to sharing the knowledge right at a mass. So a lot of nuances that came out of our podcast that hopefully will continue to come out of our podcasts in the future. So I'll leave you guys with maybe a future note on where we're heading into 2026. So we're going to continue to pursue our AI policy to practice efforts very aggressively with our industry partners and also with some of our subcommittees that we've set up. So a lot of what's in our policy posture will be kind of an initial framework for what we intend on accomplishing in the new year. We have some specific projects that we're working on with our collaborating universities in the manufacturing space, in the wholesale or distribution space, in the energy space, working on new things with AI for social good, as well as in public sector. So those will continue and expand. We are actively looking for new research volunteers in academia on either those existing projects or new projects. We have a new project that we are filming up now that is essentially, without giving away too much, speaking to your production line using large vision action models, large action models to be able to take natural language and then essentially use that natural language as an abstraction layer to be able to build out different capabilities within the manufacturing space. So this is state of the art things that we're collaborating with some of our universities on. And we'll continue to do our thought leadership sharing with our symposiums. I mentioned the upcoming ones at Texas A&M. We anticipate 5 this year, relatively evenly spaced out throughout the year. We anticipate our several new research papers that will be published on our LinkedIn and through our website. We look to expand our councils beyond the existing participations with new members. Those members will have kind of, I guess, depending on what council they're in, different expectations, but we will be setting expectations of those councils. Similarly, we'll be setting expectations of our trustees. Given how much traction we have right now, I think that that's going to be a no-brainer. There's a lot of individuals already participating actively from our trustee board. The momentum that we have, I think, is great. I think you've seen that if you've been following us throughout the year. We'll also be looking to bring some of this thought leadership in a more structured form to organizations in the form of the workshops I mentioned and other thought leadership engagements. So if you're interested in learning more as someone from industry looking to tap into our thought leadership, then I would urge you guys similarly to reach out and learn more about that. So as I conclude, I want to again thank everyone that contributed to this effort, all our 15 trustees, every single one of our council members, which we have 15 trustees, more than 50, I think, council members in total, the students that participated in our research across all the universities, the professors that collaborated, that support our labs on a day-to-day basis, and also all our technology partners and all the individuals that have engaged us in some shape or form with an interest or some sort of supporting thought. This has all helped in driving our AI policy posture, contributed to our manufacturing sandboxes, our wholesale distribution programs, all the efforts we've done in all our labs. They've all had this kind of unified view of industry, academia, and technology expertise. And so all the insights are helpful. And I want to wish you guys all a happy new year. I look forward to seeing some of you in our symposiums. And for those of you that are interested in learning more, feel free to reach out. Go to our website at www.aiconsortium.org or just simply click on the link through the LinkedIn channel that you're seeing this on and contact us, and we'll be happy to reach out to you and find out what you might be looking for. Thank you all. Have a happy new year and happy holidays.